AI is getting smarter, but enterprise value is still getting stuck. That is the problem. Not the model, not the dashboard, not the latest platform. The gap is and continues to be execution. Welcome back to the 10x Contract Value Podcast. I'm Tyja Dickerson, author of 10x Contract Value and co founder of Contract IQ. We are back with a sharper point of view. We are still talking about contracts, but not as static legal documents. We will be talking about contracts as business rules, as decision infrastructure, as value levers, and as one of the most overlooked data sets in enterprise AI. We will be expanding the conversation into AI, into data, into decision intelligence, into enterprise value and execution. Because the future of AI is not just about who has the smartest models. It will be about who can turn intelligence into decisions with authority, proper rules, and actions that actually move the business. And that is the focus of this season, closing the gap in between insight and impact. Now, let's ground this in what the research is actually already showing. Organizations are not ignoring AI. They are investing, piloting, testing, experimenting, embedding AI into workflows, building dashboards, and exploring agents. But value is not scaling at the same pace as intelligence. Now, looking at McKinsey's 2025 State of AI Research report, and they found that more than 80% of respondents said that their organizations were not yet seeing tangible enterprise level EBIT impact from generative AI. And McKinsey also points out to workflow redesign as critical to value capture. Then there is BCG's 2025 research that they found only 5% of companies in this study with more than 1,200 firms were actually achieving AI value at scale. Now, while 60% were not achieving material value despite investment at all. IBM's 2025 CEO study found that the surveyed CEOs reported that only 25% of AI initiatives had delivered expected ROI, and only 16% had scaled enterprise-wide. So the pattern is clear. AI is moving fast, but enterprise execution is not moving at the same speed. Intelligence can scale in seconds. Execution, it is still moving through meetings, approvals, silos, unclear ownership, legacy processes, and fragmented accountability. And that is why the gap exists. AI doesn't fail because it lacks intelligence. It fails when execution was never designed. Now, there are 3 places where AI value gets stuck. The first is insight without ownership. The second is recommendation without authority. And the third, action without business rules. But let's actually break each one of those down. The first place value gets stuck is insight without ownership. This is when AI surfaces a signal, but no one owns the next step. The dashboard flags margin leakage. The AI identifies a contract exposure. The model predicts supplier's risk. The system surfaces a renewal window. Then the report highlights a missed revenue. But then what? Who owns it? Legal, they see one piece. Procurement, they see another. Finance sees the impact. And operation sees the consequence. But no one clearly owns the decision. And when ownership is unclear, the insight does not become action. It actually becomes another item in a report, another talking point in a meeting, and another risk someone assumes someone else is managing. That is how value leaks. And it's not because no one saw it, it's just because no one owned it. If no one owns the decision, the insight becomes just noise. The second breakdown is recommendation without authority. And this happens when AI recommends an action, but the person receiving the recommendation does not have the authority to act. Procurement sees supplier risk, but legal controls the contract language. Finance sees margin leakage, but sales owns the customer pricing. Legal sees an obligation risk, but operation owns the execution. Data teams see the pattern, but business teams own the decision. The insight travels faster than the authority. And every time that happens, value slowly decays. Now, this matters even more as we move toward agentic AI. I was looking at Gardner. Gardner predicts that more than 40% of agentic AI projects will be canceled by the end of 2027 because of the escalating costs, unclear business value, or inadequate risk controls. And that is not just a technology warning, it is an execution warning. Because if AI is only giving information, unclear ownership is frustrating. But if AI is recommending or initiating action, unclear authority becomes dangerous. Who approved the action? What rules governed it? What risk controls were in place? And who is accountable if the outcome is wrong? That is why authority is essential. ROI dies when insight moves faster than authority. Now, the third breakdown is action without business rules. This one is hidden. The organization may want to act. The AI may recommend the right move. The business team may agree. But then someone asks, are we allowed to do that? What does the contract say? Do we need consent? Is there a notice period? Is pricing adjustable? Those are not small details. Those are the rules that determine whether the organization can act. Audit rights, remedies, rebates, termination rights, approval requirements, all of those can shape the action. And suddenly, execution slows. Not because people lack intelligence, and not because the AI lacked capability, but because the rules of execution are buried in contracts, policies, documents, and disconnected workflows. And this is where contracts become central to the AI conversation. You cannot execute confidently if the rules of execution are buried in documents that no one is using. Now, I'm curious, which of these three breakdowns you see most often? Is it number one, insight without ownership? Is it number two, recommendation without authority? Or is it number three, action without business rules? Put the one that you see most in the comments. Now, let's shift the conversation a bit. This is why I believe contracts are one of the most overlooked layers of enterprise AI. Contracts are not just legal artifacts, they are the economic rules of the business. They define revenue, cost, risk, performance, obligations, pricing rights, and the boundaries of the relationship. In other words, they define what the business can actually do. In a World Commerce and Contracts 2025 paper, it states that contracts touch every dollar of revenue and cost. Yet, in many organizations, they remain fragmented, slow, rigid, and hard for the business users to actually understand. The same research says that the average business loses almost 9% of value annually through poor contract management, with the worst performers losing 15% or more. In another World Commerce and Contract report, it also notes that contract related data is scattered across an average of 24 systems, making it difficult to track commitments or to optimize decisions on time. And that matters because if contracts touch every dollar of revenue and costs, then contracts are not peripheral to AI value. They are central to AI value. Here is the problem. Many organizations are building AI on top of enterprise data while leaving the rules of enterprise value buried in contracts. They connect AI to CRM, ERP, data lakes, documents, and dashboards. But the real question is not just what systems AI can access. The real question is whether AI understands the rules that govern the decision, the pricing rights, the consent requirements, the renewal windows, the performance obligations, because those are not legal details sitting in the background. They are the execution rules that determine what action is possible. If AI does not understand the contract, it may understand the data, but misunderstand the decision. That is why contracts are not just a legal issue. They are a decision intelligence issue. They are an AI readiness issue, and they are an enterprise value issue. So, what should leaders do differently? The 10x move, it's simple. Design the execution layer. Before scaling AI, leaders should ask 5 questions. Number 1, what decision is this insight supposed to improve? If an AI system cannot be tied to a decision, it will struggle to create value. Not a report, not a dashboard, not a general efficiency goal, a decision. Should we renegotiate? Should we adjust pricing? Should we enforce a right? Should we intervene before value leaks? That is the level leaders need to get to. AI strategy should not start with the model. It should start with the decision. Question number 2, who owns that decision? Not who sees the data or who manages the system, not who built the model. Who owns the decision? This is where organizations often break down because decisions cross functions. Pricing may involve sales, finance, legal, and procurement. Supplier risk may involve procurement, operations, and legal, possibly finance. Contract obligations may involve legal, business owners, and operation. Revenue leakage may involve sales, finance, customer success, and contracts. If ownership is not clear before the insight appears, the organization will debate ownership after that insight appears. And by then, value is already decaying. Question number 3, what authority do they have to act? Ownership without authority is not ownership. It is responsibility without power. If someone owns the decision, they need to know, what may I approve? What must I escalate? What requires another function or third-party consent? Otherwise, ownership becomes responsibility without power. Authority has to be designed. Otherwise, every AI recommendation becomes another approval bottleneck. A recent MIT Slohan and TCS study calls this designing better decision environments, not just better analytics, better decision environments. Question number 4, what business rules or contracts govern the action? This is the contract intelligence layer. Before action happens, the organization must understand the rules. What does the agreement allow? What does the policy require? What rights, obligations, and constraints shape the decision? And that is where contract data becomes operational, not just stored, not just searchable, not just summarized, operational. The point is not to have contracts in a repository. The point is to have contract intelligence available at the moment of decision. And question number 5, how will we measure whether value actually moved? This is where AI ROI becomes real. Did we recover margin? Did we avoid leakage? Improve our cash flow? Even reduce risk? Those are not activity metrics. Those are value movements. If the outcome is not measurable, the AI initiative will struggle to defend itself. That is why executives should connect AI use cases to value movement from the very beginning. Not after the pilot, not after implementation, from the beginning. And that is why this conversation matters. Not AI hype, not contract management as usual, not more visibility without accountability. This is about execution. It is about how leaders turn insights into action and how data, contracts, and context and authority come together to move enterprise value. Because the next competitive advantage will not come from intelligence alone. It will come from execution systems that know what matters, who owns it, what rules apply, and what action should happen next. So here is the message I want to leave you with. AI can surface the signal. Data, it can reveal a pattern. Dashboards can show the risk. But value only moves when someone owns the decision. They have the authority to act, and they understand the rules that govern the outcome. That is the execution gap. And execution is where value is created. This is the 10X Contract Value Podcast. And this season, we are closing the gap between insight and impact. Now, if this episode resonated with you, follow the podcast and share it with a leader who is still trying to turn AI investment into measurable enterprise value. Thank you for joining me today.